So we're coming up to a year since the trucker protest that happened on Parliament Hill in Ottawa last winter, protesting vaccine mandates with the basic argument that truckers, why on earth do truckers need to have a mandated vaccine when they're working by themselves in the cabs of their truck for 10 to 12 hours per day? But what a time to be alive. I mean, for me, someone who very rarely believes a word that the legacy media has to say, I found it quite fascinating to see the contrast between independent journalists who were on the ground in Ottawa as it was happening compared to what the media was trying to sell it as. So I became involved in trying to get the truth out there. So I had plenty of opportunity to do that with just the viewers that would tune in. We'd have live chats and stuff like that, and I'd have guests on and people that were downtown Ottawa watching what was really happening. So it was a really, really exciting time for people like me who really knew what was going on, what was the intent behind it, and what was the real experience being down there. So, like I said, it's almost been a year, and Justin Trudeau, during a question and answer period, he was asked the following question.
A year after the convoy came to the capital, can you reflect on where you think the movement is right now? I mean, there's clearly a heightened police presence here. There are protesters outside. Do you feel the movement has grown? Do you feel it's abated? What's your read on what's happened over the past 12 months?
I don't know. I think that's a better question to ask Mr. Poilievre. He seems a lot closer to the convoy. My approach is very much on making sure that we're delivering good jobs and good opportunities for Canadians. We know that people are worried and even frustrated about how the world is unfolding around them. And as a politician, you have two choices. You can either try and amplify those fears, make people even madder, reflect that anger and that uncertainty that people are legitimately feeling because the world is changing in unpredictable ways, reflect that back at them without offering real solutions. Or you can choose to buckle down and deliver on the kinds of things that are going to make people feel confident in their own future, in their kids' future, in their community's future, in their jobs. These are the kinds of choices you have to make as a leader.
Okay, so far he's saying people like Pierre Poilievre is amplifying people's fears. But he needs to stop and realize that he is the cause. He's the main cause, the main initiator of most of these fears that Canadians have, particularly the truckers that showed up in Ottawa. It was his policies, it was his decision-making that brought him there. So it does make sense here what he's saying. You don't amplify people's fears. Instead, you focus on solutions. That sounds really, really good. But what he's refusing to acknowledge is that he is the cause of those fears, of those frustrations that he's mentioning.
Quite frankly, when Mr. Poilievre's best solution to inflation is to buy cryptocurrency, that's not responsible leadership. If people had bought crypto when he told them that was the best way to opt out of inflation, they would have lost half of their life savings. That's not a solution.
Okay, so first of all, his Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, suggested people canceling their Disney Plus membership to help with inflation. So I don't think he can really speak here without calling her out first. But this whole situation with Pierre, he sat down with this channel talking about cryptocurrency. And it was a lengthy, detailed discussion on crypto versus traditional ways of handling your finances. I wouldn't even say it was him recommending anything, but he was talking in detail about the current state of where we're at with the government handling the value of our dollar and inflation and all that. So to blanket this by saying that he was telling people to go out and buy crypto, that's just definitely not true. And he was actually pressed during one of these debates. I can't remember what one it was, but a few of the candidates brought this up.
Mr. Poilievre encouraged people to buy Bitcoin, which is a digital currency. So I'm quite surprised that he is saying now that he would ban digital currency, as if he does not know that Bitcoin is a digital currency.
Well, that's just false. One, Bitcoin is not a central bank digital currency. It is obviously not. It's not controlled by any central bank anywhere in the world. Two, people can make their own investment decisions. I've simply said they should be free to decide whether or not they want to use Bitcoin. I don't want to be like communist China and ban Bitcoin, or other technologies, because in a free market, people should have the opportunity to make those decisions for themselves.
What we're talking about here, rolling up our sleeves, doing the hard work, investing in good jobs on assembly lines like this one that are building the products that not just Canadians want, but the world wants.
Why do we care what the world wants? Now, I don't know what you guys think about all this green energy stuff. I mean, there's just so much. There's billions and billions of dollars invested into the infrastructure of these things. It's going to come regardless if we try to stop it or not. But my whole idea of it, I don't buy the premise that doing anything in our Canadian environment is going to make a dent in this climate change catastrophe. I can't remember how many years they said we have left. I think they said 15 years, like 20 years ago, right? I'm not saying climate change doesn't exist. I think the climate is always changing. To what degree and whether we can do anything about it, I think the politicization is just all over this, and it's to a point where we can't even talk about true science anymore. So that's just another wee frustration we have with you, Justin Trudeau. This whole movement you're trying to shift into our country, that's just too drastic of a change. It's damaging our country. It's costing us billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, I should say. And yeah, you're right. People are frustrated. People are angry with you, though. They're not just angry in general. They're angry with you. And they showed up in Ottawa to tell you just one of the reasons why they were frustrated with you. And you know what you did? You called them a fringe minority with unacceptable views, and you ran away. Tell me, Mr. Trudeau, is that what leaders do?
Listen, there are always going to be politicians out there who try to, exploit legitimate anger and concerns that people have. But that's not the way to get something built.
See, what we don't want you to build is this green shift plan that's just destroying Canadians' lives, and it's for nothing. For nothing. And what we do want you to build, and what I expect leaders to build, is trust with their constituents, with their citizens. So when you're talking about creating these new jobs, these jobs that are replacing the very well-paid jobs like oil and in gas, when you switch these workers over, even though you're saying you want to train them to take these new jobs like installing solar panels and stuff like this, they're never going to be paid the same they were in oil and gas. And you're never going to switch all of those workers, which are just hundreds of thousands of oil and gas workers, you're never going to switch them over to this new green dystopia that you're imagining in your own head. So the fact that a lot of this will do nothing for the world, which is what you claimed you're doing this for, and the fact that Canada, compared to many other countries, has been environmentally conscious. But all that aside, I'd just rather you leave these jobs alone and maybe incrementally start introducing these new ways of doing things better. I'm for that, but I'm not too keen of leaders who make other people sacrifice for their ideas.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
So those Alberta towns that you drive through and it looks like a ghost town, those were people's families. Those were people's livelihoods.
Crossing your arms and saying Canada is broken. It's not the way to build a better future for Canadians. Recognizing, we're facing tough times right now.
All right, so let's reel this back in here. He's saying how politicians will point to the fact that Canada's broken. We're talking about the trucker protest here. It wasn't the fact that we're broken. As a nation, we're very strong. We saw that in Ottawa. But what they were complaining about was your authoritarian style mandates. That's why they were there, Justin Trudeau. So I'm happy that you're acknowledging that Canada is broken, but it's broken under your policies. It's broken under your ideas. It's broken under your regime. It's broken under your government. So I'm sorry, but if you're swimming in a pool and you start to pee your pants and that blue dye starts giving off and everybody around you starts panicking, you can't look around and tell everybody to remain calm. You are what caused these frustrations. We can't move on until we correct, until we get that person who screwed up to acknowledge that they screwed up, but you won't do that. So Justin Trudeau, if by chance you're watching this, I just want to let you know, if you were to stand up in front of the world tomorrow and say you were wrong and apologize to the Canadian people and start listing all the things that you did wrong and truly listen to the people, truly listen and have people in meetings that desired that as their initial aim of showing up in Ottawa, if you actually did those things, Canada would respect you a little bit more. I know I would. I can't speak for anybody. People are past the point of forgiveness with you. But it starts there. It starts with owning what you've done and admitting to the truth, admitting where you've gone wrong. I do that. I expect my kids to do that. I expect my friends to do that. And I expect them to hold me accountable to do the same.
But we're going to be there for each other. We're going to deliver, whether it's dental care for kids, whether it's support with a GST rebate, whether it's childcare to make sure that families can have the real choices to actually engage in the workforce or not. These are things that make a huge positive difference. These are things that the Conservative Party under Poilievre has stood against.
All right, so he's talking about delivering this better future, this product that will just motivate and inspire and make Canadians happy. Again, Justin, you have to start with the apology. You have to start with the acknowledgement of what you did wrong. That's why they're out there waving flags. That's why I was out there for the first 7 months protesting at City Hall. But now I do what I do here full time, trying to do the same, get the word out and support people's right to peacefully protest and not penalize them or try to throw them in jail or freeze their bank accounts for doing so. For me, I don't know about you guys, but I would have such respect for a politician who apologizes, for someone who just acknowledges where they went wrong. Maybe I'm weird. And speaking of apologies and regretting the things you say,
about a year ago, you called some of the protesters who came to Parliament Hill conspiracy theorists and people with tinfoil hats. I know you meant the protesters, but a lot of people feel like you call them people with tinfoil hats. Do you regret those words now?
My responsibility as a Prime Minister is stand up for people's safety, people's well-being in this country.
I would like to know where that's written, where it's the Prime Minister's responsibility to make sure we're safe. Because I know we have a military. I know they save us from international threats, protect us from international threats. I know that we have municipal police that protect us. I know we have Ontario police where I'm in Ontario. I know the OPP protects us at a provincial level. How is Justin Trudeau going to protect us? My understanding is that a government is there to protect our rights, to defend our rights from being overtaken, overstepped. And that's what he's failed to do. In fact, he's the one responsible for overstepping on Canadians' rights.
I took some tough decisions to make sure that people were able to stay safe. They were able to hang on to their jobs. They were able to make sure we're not overwhelming our healthcare systems and protecting those frontline heroes by getting vaccinated.
So yeah, I think the root of this issue is it came down to the disagreement about the handling of the pandemic, and he's making it all about all kinds of different things, but that's what it really came down to, how he handled the pandemic. And what I've been saying from the very start, and I think a lot of people can agree with what I'm saying, is that we wanted doctors to not be silenced, to be able to do what doctors do, to not feel intimidated about carrying a certain perspective, to be able to try things that work with their patients one-on-one, to not experiment, even though that's what they've done, but to, like I said, work with their patients and to have the freedom without feeling the pressure that they would lose their job, that they would lose their reputation. And that's the route the Trudeau government chose to go. And I think that's where the dividing line is. We didn't like that approach. We wanted doctors to take care of us. We wanted the same way we want police to take care of us. They have a specific skill that they're good at, right? The same way I don't want Justin Trudeau protecting me. I want the police to. In that same way, I want the doctors to have the freedom to freely be a doctor, to love what they do. Doctors, I can see, because I'm involved with the hospital life a lot with my son. I can see it in doctors' eyes that they really wish things were simpler, where they could just be a doctor for the reason they got into the profession, the things that they love, but they're so most times caught up in the red tape and the lines they can't cross without offending someone, without being sued, that it becomes very, very stressful for them. So that's what I expected during the pandemic, is to give doctors free rein to do what they were good at. And that wasn't done. People were censored, people were defunded, people were threatened, and people who disagreed with the mainstream narrative of how to handle this pandemic, we were ostracized, we were made fun of, we were cast to the side. And that's where the true division lied. I mean, that was the one thing singular that brought so many Canadians to Ottawa last winter. It started with the truckers protesting mandates that didn't make sense. Up to that point, they were heroes. They were the essential workers. And all of a sudden, when the pressure was put on them to be mandated to be vaccinated, they got a little upset. But they were equally upset with so many other professions that showed up in Ottawa. I mean, there were doctors, there were lawyers, there were nurses, there were teachers. So many different occupations showed up in Ottawa. So many different groups, people that you would otherwise think wouldn't get along. Somehow there was unity there. It was a very beautiful thing. And I'm sad, Mr. Justin Trudeau, that you missed that. You missed an opportunity. You missed a great opportunity to unite this country. Just imagine if you stepped out onto Parliament Hill and chatted with those truckers. If you listened. There were doctors there ready to talk to you. Just imagine what would happen if just maybe for 24 hours, stop thinking that you know everything and start listening to people who criticize you. Because I don't know about you, but I learn from people who criticize me. It makes me dig in deeper. Are they actually right about their criticism? And I do the research and I get better. I want you to do the same, except you're not doing that. You're silencing your opposition. Don't do that anymore.
There were people out there trying to scare people into putting their own lives at risk and their communities at risk.
Yeah, it actually is scary, Justin. It's scary when you have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms that says the government can't overstep and there's a certain process that they have to go through to override those rights. And when they skip that process, that gets a little scary because you're just thinking, oh my goodness, our own government isn't following the rules in order to override our rights. That made me nervous. That made me scared. So if you want to talk about fear, for me at least, it wasn't all about vaccines. It was about your overreach and how you were handling it. Most of the people I talked to, they were always pro-solution. They didn't deny that COVID wasn't real. They were for things that gave the best results.
My job to keep Canadians safe involves following the science, following the best expertise of our public health officials, of our doctors. And I won't apologize for doing that. We kept Canadians safe through that pandemic. Canadians kept each other safe during the pandemic in spite of those who are mistakenly telling everyone and deliberately telling everyone that getting was worse than getting COVID.
So to avoid being censored here, I will just say, Justin, I very much disagree with your assessment there and your example that you just used. Again, I think if you actually sat down with someone who disagreed with you and maybe even have an hour conversation with the person, I think it would help a lot. Anyways, Justin, you are welcome on my show anytime. Just have your people contact my people. We'll make it happen. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're not subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe. Hit that like button. Ring that notification bell. Share this video. All that stuff. Thanks again. Take care. Bye for now.